Good afternoon and welcome to our art and music panel presentation. Thank you so much for joining us online. We have three wonderful presenters here, and I am your moderator, Dr. Walker Eden. Please be patient with us as we pause to let in a couple of folks from our wait room on Zoom. There will be a couple of inevitable technological snafus, so please just roll with it and know that we are so grateful for you to be here and so excited for you to hear this good work. We have a change in the order of presentation. So our first presenter is Michael Nickens. Michael's paper is called Revisioning Children's Songs for the Future. Michael is a senior majoring in piano performance and children's ministry. He is from Kingsport, and he is planning to attend Emmanuel Christian Seminary to earn his Master's of Divinity. His project consists of transcribing a collection of children's scripture songs that were collected by our own Milligan professor, Dr. Ted Thomas, and revisioning them so that they are useful and relevant for children's ministry today. So please help me welcome Michael.
Awesome, thank you. Can everybody hear me on Zoom? Am I coming in loud and clear? Thumbs up? I think so. Yep, thumbs up. Awesome.
Love it.
Cool. Yeah, let me go ahead and pull up. And let me, yeah, awesome. Yeah. For everybody else to see. Yes, hello. So my name is Michael Nickens, as Dr. Walker Eden gave me a wonderful introduction. I can do that myself. Yeah, so since the summer of 2020, I've been working with Dr. Brown and Dr. Ted Thomas on a 499 research project that combines my love of both ministry and music together. Let's see. Yeah, there we go. So for this project, Dr. Ted Thomas, if you've ever had the pleasure of going to Oak Grove Christian Church when he was the minister there, Dr. Thomas had a very special portion of the service where he would bring down the children to the front row and he would sing these songs, these scripture songs with the children. The thing about these songs, though, is most of them have never been written down. They were passed down by an oral tradition from his father, and where Dr. Todd Thomas had met people throughout his life. And so the job and the task that how this project came about is that we, about in the spring of 2020, Dr. Ted Thomas kind of notified me and said, hey, I have these pieces and these songs that I would like to pass on and pass down so that they can be useful in ministry. And so because perfectly combines both my majors, that's kind of how this took shape. And so the first thing that we had to do is that we had to kind of collect all of these songs. So this required Dr. Thomas to record himself singing these songs, get a list of kind of on a spreadsheet of all the songs he had. And there are probably about over 80 songs that we had to sift through in order to choose them for the songbook. There were 80 and we only chose about 8. Some of them had some copyright issues, which that just kind of happens. You know, you hear a melody, you pick it up and you put it with the scripture verse. And so that was inevitable. And so Dr. Brown and I chose 8 songs in order for us to go forward in our project. And something else that was combined with this, I didn't just transcribe these pieces. I also made a couple of arrangements, 2 of which were for guitar and voice. And I also had one piece that I made into a string quartet, which is this 1 John 1:7, which you will hear in a little bit. So the next thing that happened is that I had to transcribe all of these files. So we took the audio file that Dr. Thomas sent us, and Dr. Brown and I would go over regularly, about once or every other week, and we'd have conversations about kind of what to do with these melodies. Now, if you know anything about singing in church, a lot of times that when you have songs coming down from an oral tradition, they're not always really going to fit into our Western notation system. They are, a lot of times we have little vocal inflections or rhythms that are kind of not exactly in time. And so that ended up being the greatest challenge, is trying to figure out where to compromise and where to fit the notes onto the page. I also wanted it to include guitar chord charts so they could be useful, so you can have accompanying, so you can see they're above kind of the notes, they're the chords above them as well. As I was working on transcribing, this is the look at kind of the first line of the string quartet that I arranged. I chose First John for my arrangement because I felt that it best suited kind of the sound of a string quartet. It's kind of in a waltz feel, and so it really fits that very light, beautiful string quartet. It's very much in the violin and the cello's big mellow range for the cello, and a very nice sound for the violin. It's not too high up, and so that's kind of why I chose the string quartet for this piece. Since live performances are difficult for the pandemic, I have some recordings that I would like to show. I have two recordings of me singing with Matthew Hagan, who's, I'm very thankful, had guitar accompaniment. And I also recorded with the Milligan String Quartet, as you see pictured on the right. And so I'm going to show you those newly recorded works. So pull them. That to share. Share this. And then let's see. All right. Can you guys currently see? Let's see. Where'd it go? That is unfortunate. I'm trying to share it. It's not currently cooperating, which is great. I want to share sound for sure. Files. It's not showing up. I don't know why. Let me see if I can. I'm sorry, it's not allowing me to show the video currently. I'm trying to get that worked out.
We'll troubleshooting after.
Yeah.
Presentation.
Yeah. Let's see. And it's not showing sound, which is also fun. Can you all zoom and see the recording at all? It's not. Okay. Okay. Let's see. Can you all see when I pull up the video? Yes, no? Yes, okay, cool. Let me hopefully be able to share sound as well. Okay. Let me know if you can hear this. Nope, no sound. That is unfortunate.
got a cry for help from
Yeah.
IT, so.
It's not muted on here. It says the speakers, and I don't know where the speakers are at.
Do you want to pause
Yeah.
the presentation entirely and then come back after?
Sure,
Colleagues?
that's totally fine. Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
You're good.
That's happening.
Yeah, it's all good. It's just like I don't understand because all the sound's up and it's just not coming out.
Yeah. Okay, well, we've put in a call for IT and we're going to pause this wonderful work and invite our next presenter. You all need sound.
Yeah.
She does not have sound. All right, Miss Abby. Again, thank you for your patience, Michael. I'm so sorry. We are now waiting with bated breath to hear the rest of your wonderful research. But let me give Abby just a minute to pull up her visual aid, and then let me introduce our next speaker.
Is it sharing right now? Or could I go ahead and to my email?
All right. So our next speaker, Ms. Abby Russell, is a senior business and humanities major with an art minor. She's originally from Kingsport and she's moving to Knoxville for the Knoxville Fellows Program. Part of her work will be in digital marketing for the Muse, which is the kids' hands-on museum. And she'll be earning a master's in ethics and public leadership from Johnson University. Abby chose this topic because she feels led to be able to offer hope to people through the gifts she has been given. And her project entitled Art of Hope was mentored by Dr. Heather Hoover. So thank you so much, Abby. Yes, if you want to do that.
Thank you. Thank you all for joining and for being flexible with changes as we figured things out. Yes, so my presentation is on the art of hope and specifically art in troubles of Northern Ireland, and also the capacity for healing and hope in the post-troubles work of artist Colin Davidson. But before I get into that, I have a question for you. That question is, what is your hope? This is a question that I've had to ask myself in many different seasons. It's a question that has been helpful for understanding what motive I have and what direction I'm heading. But I've also found that it's a helpful question in positioning myself to best receive the perspective of the people around me and the perspective of the people that I'm learning from. So what is the hope of the artists that we encounter? First of all, I'm going to talk about why Belfast and why the Troubles. I had the opportunity to study abroad in Belfast, Northern Ireland in spring of 2020. And even though it was 2020, I was still able to spend a couple of months there and then continue with research projects upon my return home. Those research projects inspired more passion. And in some ways, I'm thankful for being sent home early because I didn't have that closure at the end of the program. There are still so many things that I felt like I had been given passions and given ideas that I still needed to process through. And that's what led to this research opportunity. But when I signed up to study peacemaking and reconciliation, I fully intended to be a part of the process. But whenever I got there, I found out there was a whole lot of work I had to do before I could even understand the context of the people who I wanted to make an impact with. The Troubles of Northern Ireland lasted from 1968 to 1998. Not everybody knows this, but Ireland is actually two nations, two different countries, and it was divided in 1921. People there have a firm distinction between the two, but not everybody in the States understands the different cultures of each and the different complexities of having both cultures. The Troubles was a 30-year period, and it was not that long ago. The impacts of it are still lingering. During this period, it was primarily Catholic nationalist Republicans fighting against Protestant Royalist Unionists. So it was about religion, it was about geography, it was about politics, but it was really this deep generational divide that started in the 1600s when England gained control over the nation of Ireland. Not many people know this either, but Ireland has never once been both united in rule and independent. There's a lot of people in history, in recent history throughout the Troubles and even now who are pushing for that to be the case. But this conflict was really generational, it was cultural. One moment. Is that better? Okay, I apologize for that. So it was a conflict that was cultural, but it was going back for generations and generations. After England gained control over Ireland, they encouraged Scotch Protestants to emigrate into Protestantize the land, which is why now the northeastern region is Northern Ireland. That's the ports that many of them came into. That's also where this divide comes from of Protestants having their culture they grew up with and Catholics having their culture and saying this is our Ireland. And there's never really been an understanding, or there's actually 30-foot walls dividing each neighborhood. So it started out of civil rights of Catholics saying that their rights were not being upheld by the English who were governing the land, but it turned into so much more tit for tat. There were over 30,000 deaths, many of which were just civilians. And it really was just a 30-year draining period of bombs, barricades, and barbed wire that ended with the Good Friday Agreement in April 10th of 1998. The Good Friday Agreement meant that there could be no more conflict. So that meant that there was no more violence, but it also meant that there was no more confrontation. There was no more searching for justice for people who had suffered loss. And these victims of loss were the people left to carry the burden in a lot of ways of everybody else's peace. So this was a lot for me to take in. It's a lot for me to understand even now. There's so many cultural complexities that I can't fill in the gaps, but during this time, the first 3 weeks, it was just a crash course of me being there, trying to understand all of this context. And I was looking for somebody who would stand in the gap, who wouldn't side with either political side, but would say, this is what I see. This is a pathway that I see. This is how I'm seeing humanity. This is how I see a way forward. And it was hard to find, but one place that I did find that was with the artists. Troubles art has been used in many different ways. During the conflict, it was often calling people to action or calling actions to cease, but we're going to focus mostly on post-Troubles art. Post-Troubles art could be remembrance, saying these were the events that happened, this is how it was perceived. It could be revisionist, saying what if it had happened this way, or could you imagine if you had been able to see this at the time? Or it can provide perspective, saying from my perspective as a child growing up in the Troubles, or from my perspective from this particular neighborhood, this is how things were perceived. But art also has the potential to be a pathway toward healing and hope. When accents are divisive, art can be an avenue through providing a different way for people to see on a collective level that maybe wouldn't be able to they wouldn't be able to accomplish with the cultural divisions that were taking place. So we're going to look at a few different examples of art in the Troubles right now, seeing how they each use their tool of art to display a different idea of what their hope was. So the first one is Danny Devaney. Danny Devaney was a member of the Irish Republican Army, one of the primary Catholic groups, Catholic nationalist groups. He was a propagandist, and then he became a murals artist. He's one of the most well-known murals artists in Belfast. Belfast is widely known for having murals on the sides of buildings or on the peace walls. Actually, murals are one of the reasons that the peace walls have not been torn down. I was able to do some research while I was there surveying people about the walls, and that was something they cited, that they're carriers of history. But the murals are often militant in nature. They're in these neighborhoods of underserved communities, and children growing up in these communities see men with machine guns on the sides of their building and think that's what a hero is, that's what I'm supposed to be. Danny Devaney was a part of this process. He used his vessel of art to call people to fight for a unified Ireland. That's really what he was hoping for. These murals have also been a tool potential for having identity on more of a community scale. But in recent years, Devaney has renounced that and has become a part of the peace process, even painting murals of different heroes such as Iron Man or Spider-Man, so that kids can grow up in a new context. The next artist is Joe McWilliams. Joe McWilliams used the art much the same during the Troubles as he did post-Troubles. And that's kind of his hope, is that art would be an unrestricted access of speech. After the Good Friday Agreement, many topics were totally off limits. You couldn't go back and bring up these ideas. You couldn't go back and share stories. But Joe McWilliams used the vessel of art to still convey what he saw as a Catholic nationalist during the Troubles. So this piece shown here is called Christian Flautist Outside St. Patrick's. He would often paint parades or other scenes that were nationalist or Republican or things that were politically charged, and he would put his own twist on it to show what his perspective was. So I don't know if you can see this, but in the lower left-hand corner, there's actually a group of Protestants depicted in the uniforms of the KKK. This was highly triggering, but it was actually created in 2015 and allowed to be displayed by the Royal Ulster Academy. There's a lot of controversy about that, but the art world has been very aggressive in protecting the access that artists have to still convey those ideas and messages. The next artist is Paul C. Wright. Paul C. Wright is solely a post-Troubles artist. He was born just before the beginning of the Troubles and then left for college, and then coming back after college, it was really his goal. Should I continue?
All right, Abby, you are doing a fantastic job. We're gonna take a 2-minute break to get our IT situation worked out. So we apologize. This is Sean. Everyone say hi to Sean. Our 4th presenter, surprise.
So what was the problem with that?
So when Michael was trying to play his videos and he couldn't get the music to play for the Zoom audience. Another Sean, all the Seans.
Maybe it now.
Okay, is there a way to test it, or are you able to hang out until this presentation? Is the video still on? Stop it. Yay. Thank you, Sean.
All right.
All
You're welcome.
Sean.
All right, there you go.
Thank you. Goodness. And again, I just want to commend our amazing presenters for rolling with all of the things that I promise will always happen in their professional lives going forward. This is conference at their best. So Abby, if you would come back and resume your wonderful presentation.
Thank you so much. And I apologize if I go over on time. I'm not exactly sure where I'm at this point. So we've talked about Devaney, we've talked about Joe McWilliams, talking about their use of art and how they've used that to carry a particular message of what their ideal hope is. And now Paul C. Wright is solely a post-Troubles artist. He left during college. He was born just before the Troubles in Belfast, left during college, and then came back. And when he came back, he realized all these things that he just felt like or thought were normal as a kid, and realized how abnormal it actually was. He pulled up his journal he kept as a 14-year-old boy, and in there he would mention news articles just as casual as his trip to the movies. It would mention a bomb or a murder, and he actually went back and found the locations of all the things he had mentioned in his journal and photographed them in present time, showing how the element of time is not enough to produce healing. He was wanting something more to move toward healing. So he created this series called Sectarian Murder. He photographed dozens and dozens, but it normally only includes about 15 pieces, where he would photograph the scenes of, he pulled up the news articles, photographed the scenes of these locations, take out all sectarian details in the description, and then just show people that these are normal everyday scenes where great atrocities occurred. And then lastly, the artist we're going to mainly focus on is Colin Davidson. Colin Davidson is a Troubles artist because of the context in which he created and displayed, but he's different in a lot of other ways in that he doesn't use symbolism or imagery. He solely focuses on humanity. Davidson was born in Belfast at the beginning of the Troubles and then grew up and stayed in the city throughout college, and kind of saw this development of people that he grew up with after the Troubles not being able to fully access every part of themselves because there was so much loss, there's so much grief and so much trauma that was totally off limits after the Good Friday Agreement. Davidson, in his TED Talk called The Power of Acknowledgement, talks about trauma as always being now, that it's a present tense thing, that humanity is a present tense issue that needs to be addressed in the present moment that they are. But in order to do that, you need to have access to all of the things that they've encountered, all of the things that they've endured, and all of their stories. So he went to the found victims of loss and went to them to acknowledge their stories, just sitting with them in time and depicting their faces as they explain their stories, as they explain the grief that they experienced. Davidson had been primarily a landscape artist beforehand, and you can see that in even his portraiture work, in that he's using techniques of kind of treating their faces as topography, showing the hills and valleys and each crevice of their face using a paint knife, except for with the eyes. And the eyes he does with a brush in extreme detail, causing you to first look to their eyes and see the things that they're seeing. Looking at these images, it draws you into their story in a way that is deeper than words. The series ended up being called Silent Testimony, and that's really what it is. It's a powerful thing that has the ability to not only communicate the testimony of each victim of loss that he painted, but also to depict the story within the viewer as they're looking upon it. It's a place that creates conversation. It's a safe place for there to be dialogue that can move toward healing, that can create access to content without using words. There's no descriptors. You can't tell who is on whose side. You have to look at people for their soul humanity, even if they're on the opposing side of the wall or from an opposite neighborhood. Colin Davidson uses art in a way that is profound, in a way that has impacted the post-Troubles scene of Belfast, Northern Ireland, in a way that has caused people to have to use their eyes to just look at what it means to be human in a society still healing from conflict and division. Davidson also went on to do the same type of series in Jerusalem with different people on different divides there. And I would like to suggest that Davidson is an example of a way that it could be a model for modeling how division can be overcome by being able to see people's humanity. In his series Silent Testimony, he's able to receive trauma in a way that is communicated in a deeper way than words could maybe provide. So his hope was really to spark people to realize what all had actually happened, to spark people to realize what pain they still carried within them, and spark people into a place where they could actually tell stories, even if the actual content was off limits. So this is my closing question to you. Everything that you do carries a specific hope. It carries a power that you have within you. It carries a passion, whether it's creative, whether it's a computer or a paintbrush. The vessel that you carry has the ability to convey hope to the people that receive it. So what is the hope that you would like for your work to hold?
Abby, thank you so much. Belfast is a city very close to my heart, and that was just a wonderful reminder of why. We are actually going to wait until all three of our presenters have shared their work, and then we'll open things up for discussion. We're going to utilize the chat function on Zoom to do so. So prior to Michael finishing his presentation and Sarah giving hers, you are welcome to send out questions over chat. I will be moderating those after everyone has presented. So without further ado, Michael, we've been waiting with bated breath to hear the rest of your work. So, all right, we'll just give you a minute to get things all set up.
Let me. All right. It should be working now. Yes, so hopefully that is not too loud. But yes, this is the every single song for that we recorded. So there's Matthew 18:20. The string quartet is First John. And yes, so thank you. Well, I'll go ahead and click. When two or three are gathered in my name, there am I, there am I. Where two or three are gathered in my name, there am I in the midst of them. Yes. Awesome. Let me. Oh, what am I taking? Yes, but that was my project as a whole, kind of with the performance aspect of it. I want to take the time now that I have it for my ending just to thank Dr. Brown and Dr. Ted Thomas. None of this would have ever been possible without all of their guidance over the past year. So I'm very thankful for them and the opportunity to work with them. I also want to take time to thank Sheriff Fitzgerald, who conducts us in the string quartet. She did an amazing job. And I also want to thank Matthew Hagan and every member of the string quartet, which is my brother Josh Nickens, Rebecca Mavis, and Elizabeth Williams for all of their wonderful work. And so, yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. What a beautiful gift our musicians are. And I share Michael's gratitude for all of the people who have mentored this good work. And this is a great time to remind you that at 6 o'clock this evening, our faculty lecture will be given by our very own Dr. Kellie Brown. So be sure to hang out for the wonderful conclusion to our day of research and hear about her phenomenal work around music within the context of the Holocaust. So our final presenter is Sarah Baker. And Sarah's work is called Arranging Tchaikovsky's Finale from Symphony in F minor number 4. Her mentor was Hunter Mullins. She is a senior music education major, and she is from North Carolina, but will be making East Tennessee her permanent home. She's starting her Master's of Education here at Milligan in the summer. And Sarah says that she chose this topic because of the joys of arranging athletic band arrangements. Her sophomore year, it sparked her creativity and determination to arrange a musical work on a larger scale.
Get my power plate set up for you guys. Okay, well, hello everyone, and thank you to those watching in person as well as tuning in on Zoom. And thank you, Dr. Walker-Eaton, to be our facilitator for this, for our group today. Like Dr. Walker-Eaton said, my name is Sarah Baker, and I am honored to be a senior music education major here at Milligan, presenting my project to you today. For the past year, I've taken up a 499 research project, arranging Tchaikovsky's Finale from his 4th Symphony in F minor. But before I begin my presentation, I would first like to thank my faculty mentor, Mr. Hunter Mullins, a strong and steady anchor throughout this whole process. Mr. Mullins has worked tirelessly in helping me achieve this project. And so once again, thank you. Throughout this project, my education and learning about the art and process of arranging, understanding what makes grade levels of music differ from one another, as well as understanding and appropriately navigating copyright laws correctly, has grown immensely, and it will continue even after I've gone off and begin my career as a music educator. But before we get into all the nuts and bolts, I need to say, what is an arrangement? An arrangement is a revision of a previously composed work. Revision can mean reduction of length or difficulty, changing the whole piece or revising parts of it, or even leaving some things out completely. And so with that, we begin with how music is actually graded. So music is graded on a scale from 1 to 6, with 1 being very easy to 6 being extremely difficult. The original arrangement is a grade 5. And so what this means is that in terms of beat pattern, they can play in any beat, any key. Speed of music is very fast or very slow to very fast. Notes and rest values can include all rhythms can be in use. And in terms of volume, they can play very soft to very full, as well as I get my slide up. Stylistic details can happen in all forms. There is a full range of instrumentation when it comes to the score. The length of piece can be in any length, and the range is unlimited. However, for my project, I decided to range it down to a grade 3. So in terms of beat pattern, they can play the beats that are on the board. Keys are none to 5 flats. The speed is slow to fast. Notes and rest values are simple, and rhythms can be simple to intermediate. In terms of volume, they can play soft to full. Note markings are limited or stylistic details. Scoring is only for solos, which are the ones included on the board. The length is 3 to 7 minutes long, and the range is limited. And so how did I decide on this musical work specifically? Well, I had some help using a number generator in the University Intergalactic League website, which provides a momentous amount of band repertoire. My number was 16, so I went to page 16 and listened to all the band pieces listed, and out of those was Tchaikovsky's. I immediately, when I heard it, I said, yes, this is the piece. The liveliness and enthusiasm of it brought me excitement and joy, and it took me back to being in the band room my high school years. Also, I played a portion of this symphony when I was a senior in marching band. So now we need to move on to the nitty-gritty, or what I would like to call copyright laws. So some basic principles about copyright laws is that if music was composed before January 1st of 1978, it is protected for 95 years under copyright before it transfers over into public domain. Now, what is public domain? Public domain is when a work is officially released into the public and is no longer under copyright protection. And so if music was composed after January 1st of 1978, it is protected for 70 years under copyright before it transfers over. Now, Tchaikovsky has been dead for a long time, and this means his whole symphony in F minor is now public domain. However, since someone else created the band arrangement, they become the composer in question. B.F. Safranek, the arranger of the band arrangement, died in 1955. Already done the math calculations for you, and that is 65 years. And so technically, this means that the arrangement is not yet public. So because of this, other laws are in place. So you can arrange or adapt the musical work only with express permission of the copyright holder. Now, the copyright holder doesn't always have to be the composer, like in my situation. It could be the publishing company, an editor, or a third party member. For me, the publishing site was the copyright holder, and that was Carl Fisher Publishing Company. Whether you're making major or minor adjustments, when in doubt, seek permission. I had to fill out a permission slip, which included basic information about myself, but also give a short description about the piece, including the composer, arranger, editor, and performances. And when performing a musical work at a school concert, do not record, duplicate, or distribute any performances unless confirmation. The publishing site did ask me to clarify on performances, and the original plan was just to construct a rehearsal, but not to perform the piece publicly. However, due to COVID, we could not do that. And so after exchanging communications through email with the company, they offered me the rights to arrange with no cost. The company made the license into a permission slip and into a PDF so I could have for my records. With that confirmation in place, the Milligan Music Department purchased the score off of J.W. Pepper, and it was mailed to me. And here is a copy of that letter. So the overview of my process for arranging is similar to writing a paper. You create a rough draft, you make revisions, you gain feedback from several sources, all the while making it suitable into the requirements needed, and in my case, for a grade 3 ensemble. We did create a layout, but some of the difficult parts in starting this process were putting in all the notes into a notation software. Next slide. And identifying and simplifying challenging passages, as well as removing repeated sections to shorten the time frame, but adding transactions or transitions, and trying to read the original score with its different clefs, keys, and really small print. And all of this created the cycle in compiling the rough draft. It's hard to juggle school and a project. Just ask anyone who was here at the Rise Above conference today. But I did try during the fall semester. And so with the fall semester, I added more instruments, reduced the number of measures in the score, continue to revise the score, and with this, it was placing in comfortable elementary ranges using instrumentation and orchestration by Alfred Blanter and instructionally appropriate arrangement for grade 3. achieving comfortable ranges, which I just explained. And then also emailing 3 school ensembles in the area to see if they would be willing to play my arrangement. And in a short amount of time, ETSU responded saying that they would be thrilled. Over winter break, no breaks were really taken for this. Gave me the perfect opportunity to go over the score carefully, looking at stylistic details for each instrument. I'm being serious, there were no breaks taken. Once the score was finished, each part went through a final formatting process. And throughout the break, I received continuous feedback from my faculty mentor. At the beginning of the new year, I received the email from one of the band directors providing feedback. His main concern was texture. Now, texture is writing musicality into an arrangement. In band, there are 2 extremes. You have thin and then you have thick. With thin, fewer instruments are playing, but with thick, more people are playing. Both the band arrangement and the symphony have wall-to-wall thickness. But when writing for a younger ensemble, and specifically grade 3, we have to reduce the number of that texture so one instrument group is not constantly playing. Another significant portion in regards to feedback was percussion notation. Now, I'm by no means a percussion player. I play the trumpet, but percussion notation is much different than any other notation we see for other instruments. And so with this, I reached out to Eddie Dalton, an adjunct here at Milligan, who teaches percussion methods. And according to him, the notation was readable, but it just needed to be modernized. We got to jump back one more. Here we go. The 22nd of February is a day that I will never forget. I'm being serious, y'all are laughing. The 22nd of February is a day that I will never forget because hearing my arrangement, which took me a year to make, was amazing, but slightly uncomfortable. You see, when you hear it in a notation software, it sounds one way. When actual live people are playing it, it sounds completely different. It's not perfect, but I made it, which is incredible to think. And not only that, it fits in the requirements of a grade 3 piece, which is a success, and to have it finished is a huge success as well. And at this time, I would personally like to thank Dr. Christian Zimbauer and the ETSU band for donating time out of their busy, compacted school schedule to help bring my arrangement to life in such a short amount of time, but also in the midst of a global pandemic. And they also gave me great solid feedback on how to improve the arrangement to its full potential. And so now, without any kicks and giggles in the class, I will play for you all a short excerpt of Tchaikovsky's finale from Symphony No. 4 in F minor as a grade 3 work. Pray that the sound will work. And I think I'm gonna have to. Okay. Slide. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. It's such a gift to hear your work that you made. February 22nd is the date to celebrate indeed. Again, I think one more little round of virtual applause for our amazing presenters. Yes. We have some time for discussion. And so like I said at the start of the panel, I invite you to enter questions via chat. What I'm going to ask our presenters to do is come back up and sort of socially distance across the screen. And then if you have a question for a specific presenter, they can step to the podium and answer that. All right. While I give you all a chance to enter some questions, I would just speak to something that Abby said. She said that when she was looking for people who were willing to contemplate a kind of middle ground within the constant trauma in Belfast, she found the artists. And I'm so struck by that space and place that artists carve out. And then in Michael's work of recovery and historiography, making sure that the music that has been sung and passed along through generations wasn't lost as a kind of maintaining that middle ground. And then Sarah's description of her own work, she said, it's not perfect, but I made it. And I just wanted to cheer. Again, I see just in the presentations today, artists sort of carving out middle space. And I'd love to hear, I don't know, Abby, I'd love to hear a little bit more about kind of that space and place that artists fill. And then certainly we can hear from our artists in the room as well. Can you all hear Abby from where she is? Let's have you speak. Yeah, we'll have you sit there.
Yeah, so again, the conflict was categorized by Catholic Protestant. It kind of was about faith, but it really wasn't. It was really this cultural divide. Even so, the church is often what we look to, or what we hope would step in the middle ground in those situations of saying, this is what truth is, this is how you can access that, this is where you can come find refuge. But because both of those things were so heavily charged and so divisive, there had to be other people in society filling in that void. There had to be other people who could speak truth without having a religious label. A lot of people in my generation are now saying that they're non-religious, and what they mean is that they're advocates of unity and advocates of peace within the city. There's still a place for Christ to come into those spaces, but while those terms are so heavily charged, I feel like the artists have been the place that the word has really used in a lot of ways to be able to communicate because of the way that the church has been attacked and the terms that they're able to use. That answer the question.
I think it's beautiful and so true. And I love that the way that you speak of artists as ministers in their work. Along those lines, Michael, we have a question for you from Dr. DeLong about how do you see yourself using scripture songs in the future?
I think scripture songs with kids are very important because it's so great to have a mnemonic device or something for them to latch onto. A lot of times, if you tell a child, hey, can you just sit down and memorize this verse? They're not going to be able to do it. And so having a way for them to remember the song with the words and connect that is super important for them. And so I definitely see myself using these pieces and pieces like it in order to, teach it to kids so that they have something to remember, especially with scripture verses. So yeah.
I love that. As another music educator, Sarah, what kind of material going forward do you see yourself adapting for grade 3 or other little musicians?
So yeah, that's a great question. And when I was going about doing this project, I just started thinking about all the music that we as an ensemble in high school could not play due to the difficulty or just lack of full instrumentation that was provided for us in the band. And so going forward, I would like to see a change in that where more music educators are writing for their ensemble so that they can be able to experience the joys in music, even though, we don't have the biggest band, or we don't have the biggest choir, or we don't have the biggest orchestra. Because I think sharing music is important. And I think if we limit ourselves to seeing that, I can't really do this, it's not really my strength, I think that hinders ourselves as a musician, but also I think it hinders our ensemble to seeing what they could actually bring to the table in future years. So, does that answer your question?
It does. Thank you. And I just, again, it was such a gift to hear, you and Michael both performing for us. And that's no small thing for Thursday afternoon. I think we all just felt that gift so deeply. And we have another question about artists, this time for Abby. Did you meet any of the artists that you studied?
So I didn't get to meet any of those specific ones personally, but I did get to view their work. And I actually had a moment standing in the Ulster Museum, seeing one of Colin Davidson's work where I was moved to tears and actually really frustrated with the group I was with because they were trying to move me along too fast. And went up to my professor, was like, it's not fair. And just started crying because there were so many things that I was trying to absorb. But I had a kind of a funny story too with I did get to take an art class that was talking about Irish artists, and one of my professors is Mark Shields, and he actually has a piece in the National Gallery in Dublin as well as in Trinity College. And so he's a well-known artist, and I've been able to dialogue with him just a little bit over email throughout this process of creating this project, and asked his opinion about Trouble's art. And he is a typical artist personality and had many opinions. And he actually made the claim that Trouble's art isn't always art at all, and was playing with the idea of what is the motive, or what is going into it, what's behind it. He had a quote that was like, "It's too handy a nail to hang a piece of art upon." So he was kind of critiquing a lot of these artists who have just said, well, I know this is going to be something that will cause a response. It's going to be something that will be emotionally triggering. And I would say that's the case now, even in the division in the States that we're seeing, is a lot of the art we're seeing produced out of the racial divide of this past year is just so heavily triggering that it doesn't even have to be quality for it to be powerful. So my professor critiqued that, and actually Joe McWilliams wrote a lot of articles, one of them critiquing murals artists, and he likened some of the murals to supermarket promotional handouts, saying that all they cared about was the message and not actually the quality of the art they're creating. And so there's lots of ideas in there. People get back and forth. Not everybody agrees that Trouble's art is the way to, or that art is the way to address the Troubles. And some people do believe in the power of art so much so that they want to reserve it for something even more, I guess, holy in some ways.
Wow. Coming to the end of our time together, Abby, I'm reminded by the Davidson quote that you shared about trauma, that trauma is always being now. And so if that is indeed the case, I thank God daily for our artists and our musicians who help us navigate and make sense of the world that we are in. So thank you again for this healing and good work. Thank you all for being present and for your role in mentoring and encouraging our researchers. And we will conclude the session.